can't.
Ashley, do you want to do this transition or should I?
This schmegway.
I would like this one to be Darius's.
Who dat?
Oh no, I don't have any. I don't have anything good. Balls had the perfect segue. We were talking about people being androgynous. We were talking about Prince, right, and his epic game.
Go make me some
Charlie
pancakes,
Murphy.
bitch.
Oh, very nice.
Against
Now
Charlie
we're about
Murphy,
to talk about some
right?
bullshit.
And he did that in
Yeah.
in the Chappelle show.
Go make me some
Speaking of
pancakes, bitch.
Chappelle-
So what was the transition here?
Chappelle show Prince androgyny. Let's just
Androgyny Prince.
I don't.
Chappelle
I
show.
said I don't want to do it.
Chappelle.
And I say
Like,
all
please.
the time.
He takes the torch. He takes the torch of worst segue.
Oh no! I take.
Oh.
Speaking of things that get fucked, no. I think that's so
in the church.
Oh,
that gets an
jeez.
up close shots fired. My neighbors are probably like, "Who the fuck is this guy screaming on a Tuesday?"
On a Tuesday.
Well, okay.
Keep yelling
let's
at
go.
his computer.
So Darius. Okay, so oh
Chappelle show.
no, Mr.
Chappelle show.
Mr. Chappelle and his show was recently put up on Netflix
Aw.
for his segment called The Closer. And he has received a lot of backlash over some transgender comments that he has, had in his special. So people are slamming him. People are slamming Netflix because Netflix has aired it and has also come back saying, we don't allow titles on Netflix that are designed to incite hate or violence. And we don't believe the closer crosses that line. So
Who here? First of all, who here has seen the whole thing?
No, but I want to watch it.
Tater, you watch the whole
I
thing?
I've seen like half of it.
Wait,
I
Tater,
wanna
you saw it? You
finish
had your
the
hand
other
up. You saw
half.
the
I've
whole
seen
thing?
most
I've
of
seen
it.
the
Yeah.
preview.
I've
Did you
seen,
see the
like-
whole? Did you see it all the way to the end?
I saw all the way to the end, not the beginning segment. So I
So
started.
you saw the part where he talked about the trans comedian and everything.
Mhm.
Okay.
All right, who
Okay,
wants to
I'm
start
going to
it?
give my thoughts on this
Yes.
because
Okay.
this is where it gets a little dangerous. He misrepresented turf. I don't care about the jokes. The jokes were funny.
Wait. I can't hear you.
She said that shit's
Okay.
funny.
So the jokes were funny from Dave Chappelle. My issue with his special was that he misrepresented the group TERF. TERF, I mean, we all know, it's trans-exclusionary radical feminism. And this group was created specifically to fight to take away freedoms for LGBT communities and specifically the trans community, trans women. So I don't care about the jokes. I love the jokes. And for anyone in the media, I'm really upset and disappointed that they're going on the joke itself rather than that part, because that is the most important part. He said that gender is a fact. We all know this. But backing up J.K. Rowling, knowing
He
if you look
misrepresented
at
that
her,
too. Yeah, he misrepresented her comments.
he's
too.
making
Yeah.
it seem like, oh no, they don't hate them. They just, think that gender is a fact. And that is not the case.
Yeah.
They're doing stuff to actively take away rights from trans people in America in the United Kingdoms. So, and then, and I don't know if he did this ignorantly or not, because, it upsets me because he's so smart. He was so intelligent to discuss in a comedic fashion the dynamics between race and different subcultures within our society, but he couldn't apply that same logic to trans people. And then in the end, he talks about Daphne, and it was almost like a slap to the face because now no one can say anything. No one can say anything because they're gonna look at that part and make it seem like, no, look it, he helped someone. And it's like, I'm sorry, but I've heard a lot of racist people say, I got a black phone. So, for someone to say something like that and defend a group that is actively taking rights away that are going to affect people's lives. No, I just don't agree. Jokes are funny though. Good job, Dave Chappelle.
I'd say I just watched it before we started. I finished it like 10 minutes before we started the show. And I think his talking about Daphne was heartfelt. That was his friend. He really did go into it. And I hope it's not from a place of maliceness. I hope it's a place of ignorance. but ignorance is not bliss, and ignorance is not okay. The jokes are fucking hilarious. He goes on everyone in this special, black, white,
Right.
Asian, Karen,
I laughed
trans,
at all
gay.
of them. Even
Despite all this, I will say that I picked up on that exact same thing, Tater. He did misrepresent, and to misrepresent that when I'd say he dedicated a good quarter to 35% of his, because it's called the closer because this last one for a while. He's going to take a break from stand up specials for a while, because that's where he's received the most heat from his trans stuff, and he pokes fun
And
at
then
himself.
after all of that, he says that he's not going to make any more jokes about them until we're both laughing. But it's like, people are on political, with a political agenda, are actually using his words to prove why trans people are mentally ill.
He did not do his due diligence. It'd be the same way as misrepresenting. Say, I was just talking about this. They're renaming McCarran Airport here in Las Vegas to another name because this is of someone who actively worked against Jewish and black rights in this world, and they're finally waking up and being like, "Hey, you know what? That's not cool," to say the least. And so it's a purpose misrepresentation of an organization that does take away rights, as Tater said, and J.K. Rowling, who he very, very. And he said he's not quoting her exactly, but he did oversimplify some of the things, many of the things, all the things.
We
that she
all
said.
know gender is a fact.
Yeah. And he honed in on the one thing that is like, you can't argue. He honed in on that. And like you said, if it had been, I think, if it had been a white comedian saying that against black people and then bringing out their one black friend who they helped, it'd be like,
It was
I think people would get it in a way that they're not getting it with this.
It made me so angry because now if I ever talk to anyone about this and what's really dangerous about this, I'm too touchy. I am the one that's making a big deal over nothing. And it's like, but you guys don't even, most of the people don't even know what TERF really is.
I think what he did was he hurt himself for those who actually know what he's talking about in depth. Because I think any organization that has gone against Chappelle in the past, he has been an equal opportunist asshole in his comedian towards everyone. He goes against everybody. And he has no apology for it. And that's what makes him great. He's able to put a comedic spin on it. I akin him to how he redefined his stand-up and the way the South Park redefined their show. They went from being like joke, ha, 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 to political, make a statement, make people think while they laugh. I think all his specials before this, people kind of like grasp at straws in the trans community and the gay community to really find fault with him, when it was just the same kind of jokes he was telling about everybody else, including those who he identifies with. This oversimplifying a group that has worked against human rights now almost proves their point, which is why I don't think he did it in a malicious way. I think he just did it in a
it's a big oopsie daisy.
Yeah.
Because if the very population that he is trying to speak to during that stand up, I hope that someone told him afterwards, like, what that really meant.
I wish Daphne was still around, because I think she might have been someone who could talk to him about this, but what is what it is. The jokes were funny, though. The jokes were hilarious, though. Yeah,
I found them all funny, but that's the thing. And then because he's made that statement about cancel culture, if I say anything negative, I'm a part of cancel culture.
Yeah,
and it makes it hard to have that honest conversation. So that people really know that, their rights are always on the balance. They're probably one of the lowest populated communities or subcultures within our society. So a lot of the time, it depends on the person that's in charge on whether or not this person's going to live freely as they want to or as they are, or if they're going to have to hide.
He has a joke in there where he talks about how he was at a bar and he had met the mother or father, I forget, mother of a trans individual, and then a couple of days later he ran into that person at the bar, and she was with other homosexual individuals who are African American, and at some point they got to talking about like his reputation with the trans community, and she's saying, my people have been held down for decades, and he made the joke of being like, and then I looked at her black friends like, decades being held down, and I also feel like that's kind of a misrepresentation, because the only segment of the human population that has been discriminated by literally every single culture on this planet is those who identify now currently as the LGBTQIA community. There's not one society on this planet that has not rejected them at some point in history. Even when we were all just in our own lands and our own continents before we ever integrated with each other, those individuals were discriminated against. And I almost feel like that's also an oversimplification against that part of the community as well. And
I just wish with his stage, it could have just been a little more insight into what he was saying. I was just so disappointed. It's so dangerous. It made me worried. It truly did. And then the actions coming after it, and how no one is bringing this up. This part of the whole, stand up. They're not showing that part where he's talking about.
they're just honing in on the jokes, which is
the jokes,
so
and I'm like, I don't give a
stupid.
fuck about the jokes. They're
And-
funny.
And that's where cancel culture has their problem, is that they're not honing in on the right thing. They're not saying, hey, you misrepresented an organization. They're just saying, oh, he made jokes about the trans community. Who gives a shit? He can make jokes about whoever the fuck he wants. As long
I
as
believe
he
a
does
comedian
it.
can do that with whenever,
Exactly.
I mean,
I have
that's
a
their
question.
You
job
guys
to
make
make
good
fun
points,
of the
'cause this-
situation.
Tati, you bringing up the whole turf thing is that's the first time I've ever heard anybody say, like, in all the speaking about his stand-up, your comment was the first time that I've heard someone say that he's misrepresented
A
that
dangerous
turf organization.
organization.
Like, yeah, so
So I have a question.
I mean, literally, and this is not to make a comparison in any way, but it's like they scare me the way, like, white supremacists would scare a person of color. Like, these are people that
you-
are really having it out for people, in my community that just make it difficult.
Do you think that they're responsible in any way from steering the conversation elsewhere?
Who?
No.
Ooh.
The comedian?
Or the organization?
Who, turf?
What
Yeah.
Oh. No,
Yeah,
they
wait,
make
wait,
it
wait,
seem
wait,
like
what?
they already make it seem like it's just this thing where they want to separate. But what their main goal is to prove that being a transgendered or that anything with gender identity and gender dysmorphia, that's a mental illness and it should not be encouraged, and you should not allow those people to live in their craziness. That's what they're trying to say.
They need to be fixed, basically.
Exactly.
Like how
And even though medical studies and science and history has showed there's a better quality of life when you do give them those freedoms to be who they are openly. They're still saying that we're encouraging mental illness.
and
Yeah,
he
because
just
the way they're thinking of it is if you have split personality and you believe you're somebody, they're trying to say that
Yeah.
that's the same thing. That's what they're trying to go with.
it's much like how we talked about the actor from Shang-Chi
Yeah.
who compared it to a mental illness, because there are certain segments of I joked about my woke mat where it says science is science. Like, there are people in the scientific community who legitimately would compare, say, bipolar, to go back to Demi Lovato, say, and homosexuality, transgender as a mental illness. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, think about it. 50 years ago, if somebody said that, oh, I feel like I'm in someone else's body, absolutely, they'd be like, you're crazy.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm not saying
Or
whether it's right or wrong.
witchcraft.
I'm just saying.
Witchcraft.
Can I say
Yeah.
that technically Chappelle has one job, and it's to be funny. I don't think his job. While I agree that you're saying that.
I'm not saying that it is it's his job. It's more of the fact that if you look at the dominoes falling in place because of this, it is now turning into the wrong conversations.
I mean, his
And no one
show had
wants to
Clayton
say
Bigsby
that.
and the KKK, and he's not. He's just going for laughs. I don't think he's sitting there trying to educate
This
people.
this one was
No.
actually
But-
different, I'd say.
But I think,
That wasn't
but
it. The
his-
moment
his
that he
com-
was
his comedy,
describing it
though.
and stuff, it wasn't a joke itself. He was just talking and
But
going
his
to
comedy
the
has
joke
always
later.
shot to, like, he's
builds
trying to
it.
get you to have conversations. He wants you to think.
Yeah.
He's never been just a comedian, just like knock knock, who's there? Like, that's not his type.
And
deal,
the
you
last
know?
place that really
his
hurt me was when
jokes
he
are
made
there.
the comparison about punching down on his people, the way that transgender people, when they first started saying you shouldn't punch down on a marginalized community. Punching up in comedy is a little more acceptable. Like if you punch up to, like, truth to power, things like that. you're going to start those conversations. But you don't, make jokes on marginalized communities as often because it's not always looked so good.
I think it's
And then he uses that term in there to describe that they're punching down on his people, like the baby and all that
and
stuff.
communities.
Oh, yeah.
It sounds very poignant when he does deliver because he's a master at commanding.
He's
an
a cunning
audience.
Linguist.
He is. And it sounds very poignant because he does make the attempt to make it seem like his friend wasn't just a trans woman. She was a comedian. And that's their community, and that's his people. And let comedians be funny, let comedians be offensive, and you either turn it off or you don't. You either look at Playboy or you don't.
Yeah.
You either call your aliens or not. Like, you have the choice, but don't get honest because of that. And I think that message is great. I think it's accurate. I think that he did himself and that message a disservice and ruined it because he misrepresented a group that is about hate and inequality and erasing this segment of the human population. And I think what's dangerous about it is that people who are hearing TERF for the very, very first time are going to take his word as gospel instead of doing their own research and really finding out. And it's minimalizing this group of hatred. And
That's a weak-minded
where-
individual.
It is,
Well,
but
yeah,
it
but
did
find it somewhere else.
Unfortunately,
Unfortunately,
that's
that's
the fucking
human.
majority of the country.
Yeah, but
you
doesn't
know?
this happen all the time?
It does.
Of the world.
It does, and this is what we hated about, say, Trump, who he would simplify things and lie about things and distort things to sound the way he wanted them to, and his people didn't do their own research and didn't give a shit. And people on the left, on the right, in the middle, they all have done this. They're wordsmiths.
Yeah.
And they depend on the fact that 90%
People are sheep.
90% of people are sheep. They're not
I'm
thinking.
a tiger.
They're not thinking, and they're not doing their own research, and they're not actually having conversation and debating it. And most people are going to draw lines in the sand.
This is the point that also with the baby, since you put it there, I'll explain it.
Mm-hmm.
He mentioned that the baby wouldn't get canceled for killing someone,
Which
but
he did.
he would get canceled for making homophobic comments.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And because you can't disrespect the LGBT community right now. They're on this pedestal that if you do, it is horrible. But he misrepresented the fact that the reason the baby didn't get necessarily canceled after he killed someone was that it was self-defense while he was with his daughter in Walmart. So, and no one knows that. I didn't even know he killed anybody.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to find that out way later, that the reason it wasn't that big of an issue is everyone considered it self-defense at that point.
Mm-hmm.
So again, it just makes it look
he's
like
a wordsmith.
But it's it's a joke. He's not gonna sit there and spill
Ew.
all the truths. He's gonna spin it towards his side to make it humorous. If he literally said that, he goes, well, but it was self-defense because his daughter was there, then his joke doesn't hit as hard as leaving that fact out. He doesn't come up with these jokes for 2
except that
seconds.
it was
He works-
perpetuating the fact that the LGBT community are too touchy to take seriously.
because he's been attacked several times, so of course he's going to mention that.
But I
and he's
think
going to
that
make a joke about it because he wants more people to talk about him.
He is, but I think the difference between, like Darius was saying, between Chappelle and, say, Chappelle wants to put himself George Lopez and Charles would see it.
Keep him out there.
There's
Yeah,
two different
Kevin
kinds
Hart.
of comedian. There's Lenny Bruce, who was the first real popular wordsmith who used politics and words and didn't necessarily even have a punchline. And then you have the George Carlins and the Richard Pryors and Dave Chappelle's. Then you have the Chris Rocks and the Eddie Murphys and the Carlos Mencias and the Lisa Lampanellis, who are all punchline, set up, gag, joke. They segregate themselves into being, I am the slapstick comedian, and then I am the punchline comedian, and then I am the thinking man's comedian, the thinking person's comedian. And Chappelle prides himself, including in this special where he calls himself the greatest of all time.
And everyone believes
Prides
it.
himself
He's a
as being
genius.
someone who looks at things in a very fair, objective way and represents things and educates you within his community. I think if it was someone like Like we were talking like a Dane Cook. I mean, he's a horrible example. But if it was someone like a Jeffrey Ross or something, or even a Joe Rogan, it'd be like, all right, whatever, you are what you are. But this, I think, because he does pride himself on educating his people, on his followers and his fans, that's where it gets a little bit like irresponsible.
People
because
are listening to every
yeah.
word of it, and they're like just with it.
But
He
you have
knows
to
that
understand, like even Demi Lovato was doing the same thing. She's understanding that her audience is going to say and go with every.
Yeah, you pander to your audience to
The
sell magazines.
Extraterrestrials.
Full circle. There we
It is
go.
full circle. It is. It is. I mean, I guess he's just as guilty as everybody else.
You pander
and,
to your audience.
Yeah,
He's not going to make a
it's just-
special that he's going to make a special
it's
that
been-
his
I
fans
will
like.
honestly say, from my perspective, it's just been so scary at the things that I see, because people are running with this. They're running with it. So,
last question, do you think he is legitimately transphobic as he makes jokes about every other word, every other sentence in this, or do you think he just hasn't cared to understand the full picture of things? And
I
which
think
is
he's
worse?
catering to something that's a hot button topic right now, and that everybody is going to end up clicking on.
yeah, I figured that he knew that that was going to, like, he's done this a couple of times in his specials where he creates controversy to get us talking so that everyone looks at it and watches it. So I think this was another one. I mean, I haven't seen his other ones to know if I don't know if they were bad like this at all. And like I said, outside of the turf, like even the other stuff that he was saying, I didn't mind. But that turf part and the way that people that do have a political agenda are using it, and I've seen it on YouTube because I'm watching people react to the closer and stuff like that to see what their perspective is on it. It seems like a losing battle.
Yeah, it's
Done.
misrepresenting any organization that actively works towards taking away your rights is bad. Even if it's framed as a joke, in my opinion, I can't say a broad term.
I don't know if he knows, and I don't know if he did it purposely, and I don't know if it's just out of sheer ignorance. I don't know any of that. I wish that he could say something that would show us that, like, he really didn't know.
What I think
Just saying,
was-
like, oops, I didn't realize that was going to.
What it seems like he was trying to do is have an evolution in his comedy, and show like how he's learned over the years. And I think what this might just be, I hope, is that, because I do like Chappelle, is that this is just a chapter in the journey that every human being takes to understand people who aren't themselves. And it continues education, and you're going to make, and he even talks about making mistakes. Everyone froze. Okay. Making mistakes, saying things out of turn, and having to learn more. And he even talks about this in this special. And maybe this is just that. And he's, and it just is this current chapter, not the closing chapter, but the chapter that we've all taken to try to understand people who aren't ourselves and aren't our community better. And maybe there'll be another part to this later on down the road that says, hey, because he even says, I used to say words like, and like tranny and other words that are derogatory terms. He's like, I used to say that all the time.
He was saying how much.
Yeah.
He said he's grown so much since then. That's why I don't know if it was like sheer ignorance or if it was intended so that it could cause like a controversy. I don't know where it came from. I just know, I'm looking to see the effects of that, and it's
especially dangerous because it's
because people
downplaying
with an
it.
agenda, they will try and say Dave Chappelle understands what I understand. He's on our side,
But they're gonna do that anyway. They're gonna find a way to say somebody said something or
They
somebody
spin
means something.
everyone's words in every way possible, but
Right.
Yeah. Well,
so
now we can get to some fun
talking about transitions.
That was amazing.
Only you can get away with that.
Tater gets to do all the transitions from now on.